I sacrificed more than anyone will ever know. I drained my savings to pay for that dress, covered the venue, paid for the catering, because she said her fiancé's family was tapped out. I did it all out of love. And after everything I gave, my own granddaughter looked me in the eye and said, "You're not really part of the aesthetic we're going for. It's better if you don't come." She didn't even flinch. I smiled, nodded, and walked out that door like I was nothing to her. But what she didn't know was, I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Before I begin my story, let me know in the comments where you are listening from and what time it is. I just want to know I'm not alone in this. And if you feel moved by what you hear, consider subscribing. It helps more people become aware of the reality of elder abuse. Now let me tell you what really happened. I never wanted much for myself. A roof that didn't leak, a good pair of church shoes, and the kind of peace that comes when the people you raise do right by you. That's all I ever asked for. But life, as I've learned more than once, doesn't give out kindness just because you gave it first. My name is Odessa Merriweather. I'm 68 years old, a retired hairdresser with worn knees, stiff fingers, and a back that hums every time the weather changes. I raised my granddaughter, Kaylin, from the time she was 3 years old. Her mother, my only child, was killed in a car crash by a drunk driver. From that moment on, Kaylin became the reason I got out of bed every morning. I worked double shifts at the salon, did box braids till my hands cramped, and still made time to pack her lunch, press her uniform, and read her to sleep with stories I half remembered from childhood. Every tip I made that wasn't spent on groceries or bills went into an investment account I set up in her name. Not officially, not legally, just in spirit. It was under my control, but I told myself it was hers. For her wedding. For a house. For anything that could make her life feel bigger than mine ever had. So when Kaylin got engaged, I cried like a fool. She was 26, radiant, and engaged to a man named Eli Brooks, a tech developer from Atlanta whose parents wore tailored suits to barbecues and always looked like they were posing for magazine covers. I was proud. Nervous but proud. Kaylin wanted a designer wedding. Downtown venue, drone videographer, champagne towers. I didn't understand most of it, but I told her, "You plan the day you've dreamed about. Let me take care of the dress." She hesitated at first, said something about Eli's parents maybe wanting to contribute, but I shut that down gently. "Your mama's not here to see you walk down the aisle," I told her. "Let me do this one thing for you." So I called in every favor I had left, and I wired $8,500 to Maurice Lang, a boutique black designer out of Charlotte. The man made gowns so soft they looked like wind when you walked. Kaylin tried it on during our second fitting, and I swear for a moment I saw my baby girl standing there again, young and laughing, spinning in front of the mirror. But things started shifting about 2 months before the wedding. Suddenly, I was being asked not to come to the rehearsal dinner. The seating chart arrived, and I was placed at a distant table marked Extended Family. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Then the real blow came in the form of a phone call. I had just finished soaking my feet when Kaylin called me, voice high and overly sweet, the way it gets when she's nervous. "Nana," she said, "so listen, we're working with a photo consultant and they're building a visual palette. You know, aesthetic cohesion." I blinked. What now?" "Just like a look, a theme. Eli's parents are really investing in this. It's kind of a luxury brand moment, and the photographer said we should try to keep things consistent. Clean lines, neutral tones, modern elegance." I waited. Then I asked, "What does that have to do with me?" She paused. Just long enough for the ache in my chest to start forming. Then she said, "No offense, Nana, but your whole style, you kind of don't fit the aesthetic." I didn't speak. I couldn't. My tongue pressed against the roof of my mouth like it was afraid to say something I couldn't take back. "You can still come, obviously," she added. "We're just asking you not to be in the official ceremony photos. Or like front and center. Just to keep the visuals clean." She said it like I was a smudge she needed to crop out. I told her okay. That I understood. I hung up the phone. Then I sat in silence for 21 minutes. I know because the microwave clock was blinking the whole time. The wedding came. I wore a lavender dress I sewed myself, same as I wore to her mother's funeral. They sat me near the back between 2 distant cousins I hadn't seen since Kaylin was in diapers. No one introduced me. Not a single camera turned my way. When she walked past me down the aisle, she didn't even glance in my direction. After the bouquet toss, I slipped out. Quiet. Unnoticed. Like they wanted Back home, I went into Kaylin's old room. Still had a few of her things boxed up. Childhood drawings, a baby blanket, one of her old dolls. And on the top shelf, the manila envelope I'd used to hold the receipt from Maurice Lang. $8,500. That night, I built a small fire in the burn pit out back. Verna stood with me, arms crossed, saying nothing. I opened every box, took out every item and dropped them in. The blanket curled first. The drawings went fast. When I dropped in the rehearsal dinner dress, I felt the heat rise against my chest like a scream I'd never let out. Then I folded the dress receipt into a sharp square, held it for a long time and dropped it in too. "You sure?" Verna asked. I nodded. She erased me from her photos. "I'm erasing her from this house." Verna tossed in a marshmallow. "Then let it burn." After the fire died down, I sat on the porch with a glass of sweet tea and watched the smoke trail into the stars. I didn't feel triumphant. Just clean. Like something that had been rotting inside me was finally gone. Kaylin would never know what she lost that night. Not just the money. Not just the heirlooms. But me. She lost the only person who ever loved her without condition. And once that kind of love is gone, it doesn't come back. I didn't answer Kaylin's calls after the wedding. She rang 3 times that first week. Left 2 voicemails. One cheerful, the other clipped and stiff. Neither included an apology. "Nana, just checking in. Hope you're okay. Everyone loved the dress, by the way." Then 2 days later, "I don't know why you're acting like this. You said you understood the aesthetic decision." I never called back. Instead, I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat at the kitchen table with my old checkbook. The numbers hadn't changed in years. I'd been adding to that account little by little, every birthday, every Christmas, every tip from a scalp massage. By the time Kaylin turned 20, it was worth more than I'd ever dreamed I could leave behind. 82,000 and some change. That's what I'd built for her. But the thing is, I never transferred it to her name. Not once. Not legally. Not even a joint signature. Because some part of me, deep down, was always waiting to see if she'd remember where she came from. She didn't. So I moved it. I went down to the bank in person. Wore my Sunday shoes and a scarf around my shoulders like armor. The young man behind the counter smiled too wide and offered me a lollipop. "I'd like to close this account," I said. He blinked. "You're sure, ma'am? This has been active for over 20 years. "I'm sure," I said. "And I want the balance transferred. To my name. And mine alone." That afternoon, I opened a brand new account under Odessa Merriweather. Nothing attached to Kaylin. No beneficiary. No next of kin clause. Just mine. That night I slept better than I had in months. The next morning I called Aunt Verna. "Pack a bag," I told her. "We're going on a cruise." She didn't ask questions. Just said, "About time." We booked a luxury riverboat down the Mississippi, Memphis to New Orleans, with stops in Vicksburg and Natchez. I'd always dreamed of it back when dreams felt too expensive to say out loud. But this time I didn't hesitate. I paid in full. First-class cabin. Balcony view. All meals included. We left a week later, and when I tell you I smiled so hard my cheeks hurt, I'm not lying. I watched the water ripple past us like silk, ate gumbo that made me cry a little, and danced, yes danced, with a man named Curtis on the open-air deck under string lights. Verna called it my second honeymoon. I called it breathing. Meanwhile, Kaylin sent me a long email. I didn't read it. Just skimmed the first line. "I feel like you're punishing me for something that wasn't personal." Not personal. That's what she said. Like erasing me from her wedding photos was a clerical error. Like asking me not to appear in public on the day I paid for was just a branding choice. When I got home from the cruise, the first thing I did was call Simone. She used to be one of my clients back when she was fresh out of law school and still learning how to wrap a silk press properly. Now she was a full-blown estate attorney with her name on the glass door of her own office. "I need to change my will," I told her. "You want to remove Kaylin?" she asked. "I want her erased," I said. "Just like she did to me." We drew up the paperwork that week. Not only did I revoke her inheritance, but I also changed my medical power of attorney, financial backup, and emergency contact. Everything went to Verna. Simone raised an eyebrow. "You're not worried she'll contest it?" "She can try," I said. "But she'll lose." Simone smiled. "Then let's make sure she doesn't even get the chance." We notarized every page. Stored copies in 2 separate locations. Odessa Merriweather now officially owed Kaylin nothing. I took the rest of the money and bought myself a townhome in Savannah. 2 bedrooms. Sunroom. All on one level. I hired a cleaning lady who comes twice a week, and I have a driver named Corey who takes me to the market and waits with a travel mug of coffee just the way I like it. I don't ask permission anymore. I just live. Kaylin still doesn't know. She thinks I'm sulking. She thinks this is temporary. That eventually I'll come back with an apology or a casserole. But I've already packed my life into something new. Something with no trace of her fingerprints on the frame. One evening Verna came over with Chinese takeout and said, "You're different. Lighter." "I don't carry disappointment anymore," I told her. She nodded. Then let her carry it for once. We ate in silence, the kind that feels like music. The phone rang once that night. I let it go to voicemail. I recognized the area code. She left no message. And for the first time in my life that didn't hurt. It felt like peace. It took Kaylin 6 months to realize the money was gone. Not the monthly deposits, not the birthday checks or graduation gifts. No, it was the absence of something far more permanent. She'd assumed the inheritance was hers. That it was waiting quietly in the background, growing like moss on a shaded rock, ready to be plucked when the time was right. So when she and Eli started house hunting in Atlanta, she called me, all breathless and bright. "Nana," she said, "you won't believe the house we found. It's in Buckhead. 5 bedrooms. Natural light. A closet big enough for a dog bed. Remember how you always said I should have a space that's mine?" I said nothing. "We just need a little help with the down payment. I know you always said you were putting something aside." "I did," I said. Her voice lifted. "So?" "I moved it," I said plainly. "What do you mean?" "I closed the account. I used the money." She didn't speak for a long time. I heard her breathing, sharp and fast, the way it used to sound when she didn't get her way as a child. "You're joking," she finally said. "Right." "No. You said that was mine." I leaned back in my chair. "I said I was saving it for you. That doesn't mean I signed it over. That money was in my name. It always has been." Kaylin didn't scream. She hung up. 2 days later I got a call from Simone. "She's lawyering up," Simone said. "Trying to claim undue influence. Maybe even emotional fraud." "Can she do that?" Simone chuckled. "She can try. But sweetheart, your records are clean. Everything is under your name. You have receipts, bank statements, and no verbal contract. Unless you made a signed declaration, she doesn't have a case." "But that won't stop her from dragging me," I said quietly. "No, it won't," Simone admitted. "But it won't stop us from winning either." The court date was set for mid-October. I didn't tell anyone except Verna. She offered to sit in the gallery with her arms crossed and purse clutched like a church usher ready to throw out the devil. "You sure about this?" she asked me the night before. "You really gonna face her in court?" "I carried her through everything," I said. "If she wants to meet me on the battlefield now, she better wear flats." We walked into Fulton County Courthouse with our backs straight. Kaylin was already seated with her lawyer, a young woman who looked like she had something to prove. Kaylin didn't look at me. She wore her hair in a low bun, minimal makeup, designer heels. Image intact. The judge, an older black woman named Judge Morrow, looked over her glasses at both of us. She called the room to order and let Kaylin's lawyer begin. They tried to argue that I had promised the money to Kaylin, that it was a lifetime of emotional commitment and a verbal understanding, that I had set expectations, made implied declarations, and essentially pulled the rug out from under her adult stability. She was led to believe these funds were being preserved for her future, the lawyer said, only to find that they were used for unrelated personal gain. Simone stood and calmly asked the court to examine Exhibit B, 23 years of financial records showing my sole ownership. She pointed to my original account setup, statements that listed no joint party, and a notarized affidavit I'd written last year after the wedding outlining my decision to close it. Ms. Merriweather had every legal right to do what she did, Simone said. This was not a gift. It was a choice. And choices can change. Kaylin finally looked at me then. Her eyes weren't angry. They were hollow, like she couldn't believe I was fighting back. The judge asked if I had anything to say before ruling. I stood up slowly. "I raised Kaylin since she was 3, I said. I bathed her, fed her, walked her to school in shoes with holes in them because I couldn't afford new ones for both of us. Every dollar I put away was out of love, not obligation. The courtroom was silent. I didn't ask for thanks. I didn't even ask for love. I just wanted to be treated like a person. But when she got what she wanted, she erased me. From her wedding. From her life. She didn't just break my heart. She stepped on it like it was nothing. And now she wants to take what's left. I shook my head. I have nothing else to give. Judge Morrow's decision was swift. This court finds in favor of Ms. Merriweather. All claims by the plaintiff are dismissed. The account in question was never jointly held, never promised in legal terms, and was fully within her right to close. Case closed. Kaylin stared at the floor. Her lawyer offered a tight nod. Simone squeezed my hand beneath the table. Outside the courthouse, reporters tried to ask questions, but I kept walking. Verna raised her chin at them like a bulldog on a leash. When we got back to my townhome that night, I unlocked the storage unit out back. "Help me with something," I said. Inside were the last of Kaylin's boxes. Old college stuff and used decor, a few heirloom dresses she'd left behind. We carried them to the curb and lit the pit. "Are you sure?" Verna asked. She burned me first. The flames reached high that night. As her things turned to ash, I didn't cry. I didn't gloat. I just stood there watching my past disappear into the sky, and finally let myself feel what I had been holding in for years. Relief. The fire left behind a silence I didn't expect. Not emptiness. Not guilt. Just stillness. The morning after we burned Kaylin's things, Verna made us pancakes and black coffee. She turned on the radio like we used to do when the girls were young, and we sat in my sunny little Savannah kitchen, two old women with tired hearts and new beginnings. I didn't say much that day. I walked barefoot across the hardwood floor and opened every window in the house. Let the air move through freely. It smelled like lemon oil, clean laundry, and a little bit of ash. I didn't mind. Later that week, I stood in the center of my new closet. One I chose, one I paid for, and ran my hand across every hanger. There were no gowns with tags. No matching robes for bridal parties. No pressed tuxedo rentals. Just me. One of the shelves held a shoebox full of letters I'd written to Kaylin when she was younger. Birthday cards. Sticky note affirmations I used to tuck into her lunchbox. I didn't cry. I closed the box and placed it on the top shelf. Some things are worth saving. But that doesn't mean they get to follow you. In the months that followed, I stopped waiting for the phone to ring. I stopped flinching when someone said her name. Instead, I started building routines that belonged to no one but me. Every Tuesday, I visited the floral market and picked a new bouquet for the living room. Every Friday, Verna and I went to the waterfront for sweet tea and people watching. I took a painting class at the community center. Started volunteering with a reading group at the library. I even got a little cat named Duchess, who sleeps curled up on my feet like a heating pad with attitude. For the first time in my life, peace wasn't something I hoped for. It was something I owned. One afternoon in late March, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. But I knew the handwriting. The envelope was pale pink, just like her wedding invites. The ink was black, the strokes neat and straight like she practiced them on a template. I opened it slowly. The letter wasn't long. It wasn't emotional. It was strategic. She apologized in vague terms for misunderstandings and the way things unfolded. She said she'd been under pressure, that she regretted how it all played out, and hoped someday we could talk. I folded the letter neatly and tucked it into a drawer under my cookbooks. I didn't respond. See, there's a kind of forgiveness that doesn't require reunion. A kind that blooms in private, that lets you live free without opening the door again. That's the kind I chose. I wasn't angry anymore. I just wasn't available. By spring, my hair had grown out silver and soft. I stopped covering it with dye. Stopped worrying about who thought I looked old. I was old. But I was alive. And I wasn't afraid to show it. At church, the usher who used to walk me to my pew stopped and said, "Miss Odessa, you shining different lately. Got some kind of light coming off you." I smiled. "It's just the peace." He smiled back. "Well, whatever it is, keep wearing it." That Sunday, I walked to the altar for communion in a teal dress I bought just for myself. Nobody else picked it. Nobody else approved it. I looked in the mirror that morning and thought I'd want to sit next to her. When summer came, Verna and I booked a second cruise. this time from Savannah to Charleston. Just a 3-day trip, but we planned to eat crab cakes on the shore and buy matching sandals like we were teenagers on break. Before we left, I wrote one last update to Simone. Not a legal change, just a personal note for the file. In it, I thanked her. "Thank you for helping me remember," I wrote, "that being a grandmother doesn't mean being a doormat. That legacy isn't measured by what you leave behind, but what you protect while you're here." She sent back a one-line reply. "You taught me more than any professor ever did." I closed the email, smiled, and looked out at the garden blooming wild in the back. No neat rows. No wedding centerpieces. Just tulips and azaleas fighting for sun. That evening, Duchess curled on my lap while I watched a rerun of a courtroom drama. The judge slammed a gavel and said, "Case dismissed," and I laughed out loud. Verna looked over from the kitchen. "What's so funny?" "Just reminded me of something," I said. She raised an eyebrow. "You ready for dessert or what?" I nodded. Ready for whatever comes next. And I meant it. Because I wasn't the woman in the background anymore. I wasn't the purse holder or the silent check writer. I was the whole show start to finish. And baby, the encore was just beginning. The knock came just after sunset. 3 sharp taps. No porch light flicked on. No car in the driveway. Just a silhouette standing behind my front screen door, motionless. I knew it was her before I even got up. Duchess hissed and darted behind the couch. I took my time opening the door. I didn't rush. I didn't brace myself. I just unlocked the latch and stepped into the frame like it was any other day. She stood there in a cream blouse and jeans that didn't fit her like they used to. Her hair was tied up. Her mouth was tight. "Nana," she said. I said nothing. She looked over my shoulder like she expected someone else to appear. You really live here now?" "Yes." She blinked, almost like she'd never considered the idea. "I thought you'd move back." "After a while." "I didn't." We stood there in silence. A pair of cicadas buzzed from the trees behind us. Somewhere in the neighborhood someone was grilling. The air smelled like smoke and rosemary. "I need to talk to you," she said. I stepped aside just enough to let her know she wouldn't be coming in. "Talk." Kaylin shifted her weight. "I know you're still upset. But that account, that money, Nana, I need it. Things haven't been good since the court case. Eli left." "I'm sorry to hear that." Her eyes widened. "You don't care." I said I'm sorry. He swallowed. "I tried to fix things. I sent the letter." "I know. And I didn't ask for an apology," I said. "I asked for respect. You can't return what you never gave." Her eyes welled up, but I didn't move. "He said I embarrassed him," she whispered. "He said I dragged our whole family through the mud. And now I have nothing. No house. No ring. I'm back in an apartment in Decatur." I nodded. "Sometimes the bottom is where we learn." He stiffened. "You sound like Verna." Maybe I should have sounded like her sooner. Kaylin clenched her jaw. "I want to make this right. I'm ready to settle this. If you reinstate the inheritance, I won't." She paused. "You don't get to dictate the terms of my forgiveness," I said gently. "You don't get to arrive when you're low and rewrite history. You're my grandmother. I was. You traded that in for a curated wedding photo." She looked down. "This isn't who I am. It's who you were. And who you chose to be when it mattered most." She started to cry then. Not loud, not performative. Just tears slipping down her face, slow and raw. "I lost everything," she said. "Everything." I nodded slowly. "So did I. The difference is I built something new." Kaylin opened her mouth like she wanted to scream, but she didn't. Instead, she pulled a document from her purse, a printed letter, and held it out. I didn't take it. "What is that?" I asked. "My lawyer's new appeal," she said. "They're going to try again." "Based on what?" "Emotional coercion," she said, almost ashamed. I sighed. "Kaylin, you've already embarrassed yourself in court once. You really want to stand up there again and say a 70-year-old woman with chronic pain outsmarted you into signing nothing?" "It's not about that," she said. "It's about fairness." "No," I said, "it's about entitlement." She blinked. "You think because I raised you I owe you. But I gave you food, shelter, love, tuition. I gave you everything. I even gave you grace. And when you decided I didn't match your aesthetic, you threw me away." Kaylin stepped back. I stepped forward. Take that paper back to your lawyer. Tell her I'm not afraid of another courtroom. Tell her I have every receipt, every canceled check, every digital signature, every therapist's note about your manipulation. Kaylin shook her head. You wouldn't. I already have, I said. And just so you know, if you ever show up here unannounced again, I will have a restraining order filed. Savannah isn't Atlanta. The police here listen. Kaylin stared at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. Maybe for the first time she was seeing me not as the woman who folded her laundry and wrote her bedtime prayers, but as a woman who had boundaries, who could burn bridges without blinking, who chose herself. I closed the screen door slowly. Before I shut the main door, I looked her in the eye and said, You taught me something, Kaylin. You taught me that sometimes family isn't who you raise. It's who rises with you. The lock clicked shut. And that was the last time I saw her. The morning after Kaylin left, the air in Savannah smelled sweeter than usual. Honeysuckle. Wet grass. Something fresh and full of promise. I sat on my porch swing, coffee in hand, and watched the sunrise like it was putting on a show just for me. There were no more letters. No more knocks on the door. Just silence. The kind that wraps around you like a soft blanket instead of pressing down like a weight. That afternoon I got a call from Verna. They got early boarding for seniors, she said. If we want to get on the riverboat before the rest of the folks, we better pack light and move quick. I smiled. How many outfits do I need for Memphis, Vicksburg, and New Orleans? Verna laughed. Girl, just bring the ones that make you feel expensive. So I packed a suitcase with linen blouses, a new pair of sandals, and the pearl earrings I hadn't worn since the day I signed Kaylin's first college check. I stood in front of the mirror and saw a woman who had lived through betrayal, courtrooms, hospital beds, and heartbreak, and still had something left to offer. The cruise down the Mississippi was everything we hoped for. Jazz bands in the dining hall. Warm biscuits with honey butter. Old couples slow dancing under fairy lights. Verna flirted with a widower from Baton Rouge. I sipped peach tea and watched the shoreline pass like a slideshow of places I'd once been too poor to visit. In Vicksburg, we toured a mansion with white columns and ghost stories. In Memphis, we ate ribs with our fingers and watched a local blues singer who sounded like Sunday mornings and second chances. In New Orleans, I bought a scarf so vibrant it looked like a painting, and Verna dared me to wear it like a crown for the gala on the boat. I did. And nobody laughed. When we got back home, I opened the door to my little house and felt it hug me. The porch plants had bloomed in our absence. Duchess greeted me with a meow and promptly ignored me, as if to punish me for leaving her behind. I unpacked slowly, folded each item with care, and placed the scarf on a hook by the front door like a badge of honor. It was proof. I had lived. Fully. On purpose. A week later, I had lunch with Simone, my attorney. We met at a quiet cafe downtown, tucked between a bookstore and a shop that sold hand-painted mugs. She smiled when she saw me. You look radiant. I've been cruising the river like a queen, I said. Simone chuckled. Kaylin hasn't filed anything else. I think she's done. She was done the moment she told me not to show my face. Simone nodded. You want to talk about any updates to the will? No changes. Everything's set the way I want it. House in my name. Account secured. No one else's fingerprints on anything. Simone leaned back. You really did it, Odessa. I didn't just do it, I said. I survived it. And now I get to live it. That evening I hosted a small dinner at my house. Just a few friends from church, my neighbor who helped with yard work, and a librarian who'd become my gardening buddy. We ate baked chicken, collard greens, and sweet potato pie. No fancy place cards. No matching linens. Just joy. As the sun dipped below the rooftops, we sat on the porch and passed around a photo album I'd put together from the riverboat cruise. One picture showed me in that scarf, head tilted back in laughter. You look like a woman with no regrets, my neighbor said. I smiled. That's because I have none left to carry. After everyone left, I sat alone under the porch light and let the silence settle in again. I thought about all the versions of me that had existed. The young mother. The grieving widow. The doting grandmother. The betrayed woman. The fighter. And now the woman who chose herself. I took out the final envelope from my desk drawer. It was addressed to me, written in my own hand. Inside was a single sentence I'd penned months ago during one of my lowest moments. I am still here. I read it aloud, let the words hang in the air, and then I tore the paper in half. Because I wasn't just still here. I was blooming, living, thriving. I was no longer the background character in someone else's life story. I was the whole damn book. And this chapter? It didn't end with heartbreak. It ended with a woman in a small sunlit house, wearing pearls and a scarf like armor, smiling to herself because she finally got the ending she deserved. A quiet one. A free one. Her own.